Hey guys, what's up? And welcome to another episode of the TheGoodCastShow. So today it's all about books, and it's a very, very nice book. It's called The Illusions of Freedom. That's right. I read this book and it's really interesting. It delves into a lot of topics like racism, academia. In fact, this book should be called The Dark Side of Academia. A lot of things we did not know about the nasty world of academia. A lot of backstabbing and things I really don't, because I thought academia was all about pursuing knowledge and expanding the human race, pushing it further, but apparently not. So today, I have an academic herself who wrote this book in a tell-all, describing her journey of researching and also getting her doctorate. And her name is Sarah Wijesinghe. Am I correct? Yes, I am. Please welcome Sarah. How are you, Sarah?
I'm good, thank you.
Sarah, interestingly enough, in this book, there's a very fun anecdote that you did not complete. So I thought you could do it here. So by the way, guys, she's Sinhalese. Oh my goodness.
Why is that? Oh my goodness.
No, because back then, remember what all happened, the Tamil.
of
So you were
course,
relating
of
the
course.
story where you went in a cab
Yeah.
and the guy asked you about
Am
your
I-
background.
am I
So what
Sinhalese
happened?
or
How did
Kannada?
he respond to you when you told him that you were Sinhalese?
I didn't write that in the book.
You did, but you didn't finish about his response. I was like, where's his response?
It was more of like a hostile reaction. As if, I've done something wrong,
Yeah.
as if I represented my government. Officially saying I don't agree with what my government did. I see that as a genocide.
Yeah.
So, but when these things happen, you automatically become this epitome, this image of the government.
Yes.
Just
Rajapaksa,
because
yeah.
of the label you carry, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a time that I was afraid to say, oh well, yes, I'm Sri Lankan and I'm Sinhalese, yeah.
But it's all done now, and thank you for writing this book. So as I said, the book is called Illusions of Freedom. And I want to go for the first part, I want to talk about the interesting quotes that I found in this book. Very interesting. I love the way you play with words. I loved it. Fantastic. So here's the first one. You say that in this book, basically, you use this term neoliberal currency. So what does neoliberal currency mean in the world of academia?
Okay, good question to start with.
The easy ones.
Okay. Okay, this is the easy ones. All right. So what I meant is that in any structure, so there's macro structure and there's microstructure. So I'm going to take academia as the microstructure. And in that structure, there is this system that tells you what's going to get recognized and what isn't recognized. So one of the things that gets recognized is publications, for example, right? Because that's part of your KPI as well. So the higher your publications, or the higher the number of your publications or your research output, the more currency you have in your hand to negotiate power within academia.
Okay.
So that's what I meant, the neoliberal currency. So we think that it's just the money factor, but there's so many other aspects that we use as money to exchange value.
Now,
Yeah.
interesting, like I said earlier, right? Our perception of academia stems from, of course, my experiences as an undergraduate, right? When you have things like Turnitin, the check for plagiarism and all of that is covered in this book, guys. By the way, when I was reading it, I was like, my professors were such hypocrites. Anyway, but when I read your book, it kind of, because I rely on academics to, as I say, push the human race forward, right? They are the ones who search knowledge, discover new things and all that. But as you mentioned about neoliberal currency, if your worth is the more publications you put out, and if there is a KPI to seeking knowledge, does that mean that the world of academia cannot be relied upon to push the human race forward because it's all about numbers and nothing else?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can say a yes or a no for that question, because I can't speak for all academics. Because I know that there are a lot of academics who resist the system, and they are very true to pursuing knowledge and expanding a body of understanding about the world.
Yeah.
But the system is such, and I think Prof. Said Farid Aratas also spoke about this, of the neoliberal system in academia. And ranking, right? So in universities, all universities are unfortunately, they're kind of forced to be in this system of ranking. And there are so many different rankings, right? There's the QS ranking, the Times Higher Education ranking, the Shanghai, whatever.
So many.
Yeah.
We'll need another hour for that.
Exactly. So in order to be competitive, because if you aren't competitive, then you can't get international students, you can't get the grants you desire, and etc., etc. So you are forced to be in that system, and then you are forced to kind of adapt what the system is telling you that you need to do in order to be ranked in that system. So the research output is one, the number of international students. There's a huge criteria, number of international staff, number of Q1, the quartile one, the top highly ranked journal publications, and etc. So you're kind of like, your worth is pushed against these standards. And you, as an individual, you don't really have so much power to resist against that system, because if you do, we have this phenomena in academia which is called the publish or perish culture. Right? You either do it or you perish. So it's not so much of a choice, right? You're forced into that. Yeah.
So I mean, it is sad to hear. As someone who appreciates philosophy and knowledge, I just feel that it sort of negates the growth or the benefits of this, what this field is supposed to do for us as a race.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And
But
what you're saying is the same idea that I came to academia with. I had the same idea of what universities are meant to do and what we are supposed to do in terms of, pushing the boundaries of knowledge. But what I saw was something completely different. Yeah.
Guys, that's why you have to get the book. It's all here. It's all here. We'll be sharing the links, by the way. You have to read it. Now, another one of my quotes that I really like from this book, a line that you said that goes like this: "Science hides behind an illusion of systematism." Fantastic line. I loved it. What did you mean by that?
You see, we think that when something goes through a systematic process, it's easy for us to accept that as true. Right? I'll give you an example, the first example that comes into my mind,
Sure.
because it comes from this talk I watched, that that intermittent fasting, for example, that it is good for your health has been known in societies for a very long time.
Yeah.
But until it went through a scientific process, and for many people, it was hard for them to absorb it as fact, right? So it's only when reality goes through a systematic process, we can accept that as fact. And as a result of that, we negate and we refuse to accept so much other knowledge in this world that may not fall through that systematic process of science.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and also if you go into science and if you're engaging with it, you will also realize that there's a lot of things that you can manipulate in science. And I think this has been a big topic of discussion in, with a lot of retractions and etc. happening in the research world. So even when you're studying something, you're studying, for example, the reaction of one variable against another. There are so many other variables that you're not studying in that moment. So it's just one capture of a tiny reality. But we get into this notion of, no, this is the fact, this is the truth. And for something to be true, it has to follow these steps. Only then can it be true.
Otherwise, it's not accepted.
Right? So like knowledge that is passed on from generation to generation, like my mom telling me it's not okay to take a shower at night because it can make you sick, right? That's not knowledge.
Because it's not gone through that whole process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? So there's a lot of knowledges of the world that we refuse to accept as a result of this stamp of science.
Very interesting. Yeah, and I completely agree with you. And that's one thing I liked about the book, because when I was reading it, I was like, my goodness, I agree with this book so much. One or two I don't agree, which we will touch on, which I would like to get you.
I like you don't agree.
Okay. Now, here's another line that I like from the book. It says, "Let us not fall prey to the system of subjugation that hinders our ability to imagine otherwise." Again, brilliant line. My goodness, you can write. What systems in academia do you feel limit had limited your imagination in your experience?
Okay. The system that dictates academia, I wouldn't say that it's something that's just within academia. This is a system that we all experience. So it's not a system that I just experience in academia, it's in every other aspect of my life as well. And that is neoliberal capitalism, right? That's the macro structure that governs how we perceive everything, to be honest, how we give meaning to our time, how we give meaning to our work, how we give meaning to leisure, how we give meaning to everything. And how we give meaning to anything in life dictates how we move around in life. So that's why I titled the book The Illusions of Freedom, right? So because academic freedom was an illusion,
It doesn't
and
exist.
it doesn't exist. In today's system of academia, it doesn't exist because, again, there is a system of merit, right? There's a structure that tells you that these are the things that you need to achieve in order to sustain yourself in this system, right? So let's take research as an example. So even in research, I think Prof. Farid also touched upon this, that there is this hierarchy of journals. And in these top-ranked journals, for example, there are gatekeepers. And largely, these gatekeepers are white, old, male.
Okay.
Right? So they also kind of perpetuate the kind of research that gets attention,
Okay.
the kind of research that gets accepted into certain journals.
Okay.
So essentially, they're also directing the course of research itself. And if you want to fit in because you want to get published, you want to get citations and et cetera, you have to kind of follow the flow, right? So when you follow the flow, you have very little freedom to sort of do perhaps what you're passionate about, because maybe what you're passionate about is not the interests of the gatekeepers. This is what I faced because I study about decolonization in tourism, and most people are not interested in that. To most people, it's like, huh? What decolonization? We're done with it. Why are you still talking about history? That's the kind of response I get. Yeah. So it dictates how you can move through the system, which is what I tried to depict in the cover page as well.
Yes, with the mice, with the graduates. Yeah, which is lovely. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
So this is the part with the cheese. And this is the part that will, you will achieve and you will get recognized. This is the path of recognition, right? The cheese. And if you fall out of it, you're excluded from the system, right? So majority of people would just follow the path because in order to climb the ladder, you need to follow the path of cheese.
Yeah.
So
that means that route is even incentivized with all these promotions and validity and all those kind of things.
Yes.
So the next part is this. I also want to go into what shocked me in this book. Definitely, it was a revelation. I didn't know it was like this. Maybe I thought at worst to worst, you may have one or two cases of things not being done proper, but apparently it's all over the place. So let's go into that. You talk about sometimes research results are false. They falsify surveys and research results. So if this is so, can we truly believe the world of academia? Because the way I look at it is one false finding, one falsified research, if it is if it is cited in another research, then it affects the validity of that research as well. So it's like an entire domino effect. So can we ever trust the world of academia?
Again, a big question.
Say it here.
But I'll tell you something. Let's say one research was falsified, but when someone else is doing research related to that field, for example, they're not going to just refer to that one person's research. Essentially, they have to refer to the majority of works that has been done in that topic in order for them to expand it further. So, yes, we are worried about the falsified research.
Sorry, but just one thing, because you do mention this book where you saw people filling out their own surveys.
Yeah.
When I read that, I was wondering, what were they planning to achieve by that? I don't get it.
There is this Actually, there's a lot of biases in academia, right? If I
Okay.
go into explaining all of them, I think we will go on for hours.
Go ahead.
But with this, for example, there is I think the reason why a lot of academics end up doing such things is it's again because of pressure.
Okay.
Right. So I think I'm going to refer back to what Prof. Farid's father, Syed Hussain Alatas, has written about defensive corruption as well. Defensive corruption is reactionary corruption, right? You're doing it and your excuse is that, oh, I have no choice. I have to do it, right? We exist in a system where researchers who publish 100 to 300 papers a year is rewarded.
Of course. Yeah.
That's crazy. 100 papers a year is crazy, right? I just realized I said it on camera. but we exist.
Just so you know, everything is recorded, by the way.
That's all right. That's all right. But yeah, we exist in a system that rewards quantity. And because it rewards quantity, sometimes people take the shortcuts. Because the speed of production is so fast that if you really want to do quality research, it takes a lot of time. And essentially, it's about observing reality, right? What is, understanding what is. And that requires time. But imagine if you're writing 1, 2, 3 papers a week. What exactly are you doing, right? So that's how people end up resorting to these kind of things where they falsify the data, they play around and manipulate the data, they fake the data, and so much else.
Wow.
Yeah. But I'll say something.
After this, I'm saying, I think after this, you're going to be loved in the world of academia.
Yes, I can already imagine.
Yeah, cherished. Now, interesting thing you talk about in passing, though, you just mentioned, I think in one sentence, you say that in the world of academia, the young are exploited. How?
There's a word that's not coming into my mind. Yeah, we're exploited. It's almost as if we are free labor, right?
You mean slavery?
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, modern day slavery.
Yeah.
Modern day slavery unfolds itself in so many ways. This is just one of its ways. How does it happen is that I'll tell you what I experienced.
Please.
Okay, so when I was doing my PhD, I was told, Sarah, if you have these things, you have your currency, you can negotiate this space. Okay,
What were those things?
Publications in top journals. You go to conferences. You put yourself out there, make yourself known.
Come
you
on a
attach,
podcast, and reveal all.
you attach yourself to these well-known names in the field, etc., etc., etc. And once you do those things, you're going to be able to negotiate power in this space, right? That's what was told.
My goodness.
But then you realize you play to the tune of that drum, and then let's say you achieve a few things and you come to a space and you realize, actually that's not true. Now you have another standards that you need to fulfill in order to achieve that power. And it just keeps going, right? So when a young academic comes in, you are exploited on the basis of your age because, you're young. What can you possibly know?
Oh, yeah, you're stupid.
Right?
Yeah.
You're stupid. How dare you? Right?
You know English? Wow.
Exactly. So when a young academic comes, the academics themselves or the young scholars themselves kind of have internalized through the system that they have no power, right? And they have also internalized this idea that they cannot resist the structure because you get called a rebel, you get sidelined, you get excluded. So you end up saying yes to many things. And the senior academics know this, right? There is a hierarchy of power in the space. And that's how you get exploited. Not everyone, though. There are those young scholars who will resist the structure. They will actively resist the structure and say no. But then obviously there are repercussions for doing that. And this is a system that that, okay, whether you like it or not, you want to be in this system because, you've done your PhD, you want to be an academic. This is the only system you feel like this is the only system that you can thrive in as an academic. So you feel like, okay, whatever it is, I'll just do it. That's how the exploitation happens. It's almost like an internalized feeling that you feel that, okay, I have no power. I'm at the bottom of the scale. Whatever you say, I'll do because I want to get to where you are. I want to get that power, be able to decide for myself. But again, that's an illusion.
But if you were to resist this and you stand up against it, which you did,
yes,
what were the repercussions you faced? Which is
Okay.
also in the book, by the way.
Yes, it is. It is. So one of the biggest repercussions that I faced was that I went through 2 years of bullying.
And sorry, but this is not gender specific. This is just about your attitude, right?
Meaning?
That means you get bullied regardless whether you're male or female. It's, as long as you oppose the system, then you face these consequences.
There may be a gender element as well,
Okay.
but I can't say that for sure. It just so happened that my line manager, the person I was reported to, was not a white, but an older male, right?
Was he Indian? You can say it. I mean, it's already in the book anyway. I think I know his
It's
name.
in the
Starts
book,
with a D, right?
I haven't used real people's names.
Oh, really?
No,
Okay, perfect.
no.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So go on. So you were bullied, and what are the repercussions?
Yeah, so I was bullied. I was removed from opportunities. The same person who was bullying me kind of came in the way of what I can and cannot do. He attempted to kind of dictate what kind of research I can do and who I should publish with, that I should carry their names, and etc., etc. This went on for 2 years, where I refused to participate in what he was saying that I should. And that resulted in a forced PIP.
Which is performance, what's it called?
Performance improvement plan.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I was on a scholarship that with a condition that said that I have to work with the university for 3 years. So 3 years scholarship, 3 years work with them.
Okay.
And that one period was cut short into 2 years with this PIP. Like, quite honestly, I was very happy that it happened.
Because?
Because I wanted to leave.
There you go.
But if I left on my own accord, I would have had to pay back the scholarship.
I see. I
was
see.
happy.
Oh, there's a silver lining to every
Silver
crown.
lining,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So now another shocking reveal, which I think sort of ties up to what you were saying earlier of how the young are exploited, is that senior scholars would ride on the work of junior scholars. Junior students who come in, researchers, so they would ride on your work. Was this common practice? I mean, and how does this whole thing happen? How can I ride on your work?
Okay. So it happens. Okay, there are different layers of how it happens. I'll just tell you one major layer. Let's say you're a PhD student and
Never
you
gonna happen,
obviously
but yeah.
no,
I don't have the brains for it. Anyway.
but then you have a supervisor, for example. Now, during your PhD, some universities require you to publish, and some universities they indirectly require you to publish. But once again, when you're a PhD student, you already know the system to which you will have to correspond to later on when you enter academia. So you already know the standards. And on the first year of your PhD itself, you get this from the pantry and the corridor, you hear, oh, you have to have these publications if you want to get a job. You have to have this if you want to get a job, blah, 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 blah. So whether it's a requirement or not, you internalize, okay, I have to publish. So how the writing on happens is that, let's say I'm writing a paper and my supervisors, they indirectly assume, or the system requires you to put their name into your work. Essentially, they're getting free publications from their students without doing anything, without contributing anything. And this is something that I am expanding on. I'm doing some research on this, it's called coercive authorship. I'm doing some work with Prof. Farid, and we're looking into this phenomena of coercive authorship, where young scholars are coerced to put other academics' names into their publications.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see the finding of that. Maybe that's another book on its own. Coercive author by the coerced author once. Anyway, so now, of course, there are you wouldn't think of it, but there are similarities between the world of hip hop and the world of academia, apparently, and one of it being ghostwriting. I thought only Drake had this issue, but apparently you do too. So, but you said no to this, right? You said no to ghostwriting. So, does ghostwriting happen a lot?
Oh yeah. Yes. Actually, I would say it happens at a much higher extent now than it did in 2016 when I started my PhD, right? But again, it's because what is getting rewarded by the system, it's quantity, right? So this whole process has been kind of manufactured to enable that.
But why would I'm assuming that the ghostwriters are younger researchers.
Some are young scholars.
Some are old. Okay. But what is the incentive for them to do it?
Money.
Money.
Yes. You get paid a lot. Yes. There are whole businesses made up on this that you can pay them money and they will get your publication ready for you. You don't have to worry. Okay. And you can get your PhD written. You can get your books, whatever you need, you can get it written. This is all news.
So have you been tempted to use it? Like
no way.
No way.
I will not. No, I
At
will.
least not in public. I mean,
no way.
No way.
Because I honestly won't be able to sleep at night.
Yeah.
I can't sit with myself if I resort to such things. I can't. Because I'm sure you can see from the book itself, I'm not interested in structuring myself to fit into that mold. I'm trying to realize something with my research. So I'm not interested in the speed of things, but I know this is something that we are researching on as well. There are whole businesses that are made up of writing PhDs, writing publications. They can guarantee, okay, you pay this much, we can get you a Q1 publication. Yeah. And recently, you know about ResearchGate?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I have a profile on ResearchGate.
Okay,
obviously.
Let's go. I see you all warmed up now. More. Let's go.
Recently, I received this message on ResearchGate, and the person asked me that if I would be interested to write and publish, and they said I would be compensated like very well.
ResearchGate is a big deal, right?
Yes, it is. It's like the Facebook of academics, right?
And they asked you whether could you...
No, not ResearchGate. Someone sent me a message they have a profile on ResearchGate.
Oh,
you can message each other.
So it's like a social media for
Yes.
nerds anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got a message and I was shocked. Like how, like the audacity to do such a thing on such a platform. And then obviously I told them that I'm not interested. And I told them I will report your profile as fraudulent.
Okay.
And they sent me a message saying, ha 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 ha.
I had an experience when I was in university, when I was in my undergraduate. So I had this marketing lecturer who was a doctor. His name was Dr. What's his name? Chinese guy. And I used to not really like reading textbooks and I used to like reading journals, right? Because I felt that sort of push is a different thing. So I remember this very clearly. I remember we had an assignment to talk about, I think, different sorts of pricing when it comes to marketing. So the book had ABCD, right? But then when I read the journals, I found this new concept called dynamic pricing, which is even used today. In airlines use it and all that.
Yeah.
And I remember writing it in my assignment, right? But I was reprimanded for that because it wasn't in the textbook. Yes. And this guy was such a... he was so annoying. I don't want to use the words.
This happened in university.
And
That's
I
so
remember,
sad.
yes, and I was like, no, but it's in the journal. And I remember I cited the journal. I brought the journal to him. He said, no, it's not in the textbook. So we cannot talk about it yet. So I think the problem is that the university incentivizes grades and academics who may not be willing to, look outside of the textbook. And that's why I guess your students may not really be interested in journals because what's the point? I'm not rewarded for it, right? That could be, maybe if the universities change their attitude, that's how people will read your journals. Don't you think?
My journals, or just journals,
Journals in general, yeah.
Journals in general.
Yeah.
I mean, in my assessments, I always develop my assessments in a way that you have to use your critical perspectives, right? So I would not do that. Actually, if I saw that a student went beyond the textbook to explore some new knowledge and they brought it on into their discussion, I would be very happy with that.
Definitely, yeah.
So I would say
You should have
different
been my
lecturers
teacher.
have different styles.
I'd have got an A for that paper. It's still a sore point for me.
You got an A?
No, I didn't.
You
I
didn't?
But I think that to be fair, the lecturer hated me because he came to class one day. I don't know why. And he brought up this example. We were studying some marketing, I think it was consumer behavior. And he brought up this topic about how in India, apparently, he read an article where for weddings, they gift the other side toilets. So I found this very insulting because you're saying that without painting context, right? Context is very important to anything.
Definitely.
So you're not talking about poverty levels and you're not talking about different income groups. You're just saying it randomly. So the message it paints on the other non-Indians in the room is that Indians give toilets for weddings. Right? Because you can't expect them to understand because they are not Indian, right? So I was very angry. So I think because of that, he didn't like me. Can't remember what's his name. I remember he was bald. I hated that guy. I hope he watches this.
I think it says a lot that the only thing you remember is that he's bald. I think I understand the extent of your hate. Yeah.
Now, you say in this book that the need to publish made you into a machine. And it must have been tough because that you sort of, towards the end of the book, you sort of go through like a downtime. You sort of go through this machine experience you have published and all that. How did you come out of it?
I would say that this is something that, considering that I'm back in academia, I would say this is something that I constantly fight with even today. Because you have this, for me, it's a fight. The structure that I know rewards a certain kind of behavior and a certain sense of achievement. And then there's me and my own values and what I want to and aspire to do with my own research and efforts. So this is a constant fight for me. Because if I stick to my values, I can't produce in the speed that the structure wants me to produce. I just can't, right? Because if I develop in that speed, it would just have very little meaning, right? So this is a fight that I'm still having but I try my best to draw a line to say that no. For example, now all my research projects are projects that address an actual social issue out there because I want it to be meaningful, right? I don't want it to be like, okay, I'm just selecting topics the fastest that I can publish and the topics that would give me the highest amount of citations, etc., etc. I can't function like that. It just negates who I am, and so I actively choose, but still. Again, it has repercussions because you're kind of resisting the system. So you get people think that, okay, Sarah, she doesn't care much about these things. And then you're constantly in a loop where you're seeing certain things and people getting rewarded. Who gets rewarded? You are actively seeing it, right? The people with the highest citations, the people with the highest number of publications, etc., etc., etc. These are the same things that young scholars see as well, and they kind of develop the same aspirations. Oh, I want to have that as well. So this is a constant fight for me. Have I somehow transcended it? No, because I'm still in the system, right? So it's a continuous fight for me.
Like for me, I love politics. That's one area I love politics, among other things. But when you get into it, sometimes you can be disheartened and disillusioned. Not sometimes, a lot of times actually, let me be honest. In fact, just yesterday, I went through an episode, an internal crisis. And I just wonder whether, and it's hard for me to keep my visions and dreams in this field alive, right? Do you feel that after you went went to academia, as you mentioned early on, you came in with the idea of expanding the human knowledge as a race and all that. Now, are you jaded?
No.
How so?
Okay, if you read my book, I'm sure towards the end of my book, you might feel that I am in that place where I've lost hope, right? And that's the reason why I left the system, because I felt like it was just consuming every aspect of who I am. It was consuming. And it was kind of depressing to continuously witness what the system or the structure was making people behave in a certain way, in doing certain things. That kind of really brought me down. And most were unconscious of their predicaments. But now I have a different perspective. I acknowledge the system for what it is. Okay, this is the system, this is the issue, and this is me. Before, I used to sit in the system and it used to weigh me down. Now I sit outside of it, I observe it for what it is. And I tell myself, and you can say this is another illusion, but I tell myself, okay, Sarah, I'm going to actively resist this. I'm going to fight it. And I'm not going to be burdened by what I see in the system, because I need to stay true to what I believe in. I need to stay true to my resistance. And someday, maybe, it will lead to change. But I can't also be the person to back down, because then all of us will back down. Right? People who see the problem for what it is, if they back down, then what's the hope? Where is the hope?
Because in the book you do talk about consumerism and how commercialism as well. I think these two things have the ability to take out the soul out of anything, basically. Even if you look at sports, for example, when I was a kid, sports was much more tribal. Now it's become all about dollars and cents, right? There's sort of different activities anyway. And I think the same has happened with universities, academia. So they are forced to have these high rankings and high things to get money coming in. It's at the end, it's all about money. But I'm just wondering, are you able to do what you do independently?
Independently as in?
Without being attached to university, without being attached to these institutions?
Yes, you can.
You can.
Doing research?
Yeah.
Definitely you can. You can work as an independent researcher. Yeah.
Okay.
But you just get isolated. Yeah. So you have to actively play a part in connecting with the larger community of research in whatever field that you are in, because if not, you're like you're a silo. You're alone, right? And it's important to be a part of community, because that grows your mind.
Yes, that's
I
true.
think we are just generally structured to be in communities, even though the system tells you that individualism is more rewarded, but the collective is still, for me, it's still the stronger part.
I mean, in this next part, I want to go to just some of the points that you made in this book. I don't want to give too much away because, again, it's a fantastic read on its own. So I don't want to sort of blow the surprise or blow the essence of it. But you say that university is a place for assimilation. Why do you say this?
You know, when I published the book, someone said, "Oh, is it a book about whether I should go to university or not?" No, it isn't, right? Universities are, like you said, forced to be in this condition. But within the university, you're going to find pockets of resistance. There are pockets of resistance. And what I meant by assimilation is that, I'll give you one example.
Please do. I can't wait.
When we are developing a curriculum, so for example, now I teach on the topic of sustainable development. When we are asked to develop a curriculum, again, you are asked to think about the trends. There's very little space for critical thinking because you're asked to think about the trends. You are asked to kind of just, okay, here's the trend, pass it down.
By trend, what do you mean?
Okay, now the ESG.
Okay.
Okay, or the any or the green marketing. There's so many trends, right?
So a
The
topic that is
generative
trending. Yeah.
AI,
Okay.
whatever
Okay.
topics that are
Okay.
trending, you pass it down, right? So essentially, what happens is, there is this idea that the university must be relevant to the industry, right? Because at the end of the day, your outcome should be this knowledge allowed you to get a job to achieve that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So the trends in the industry kind of dictate our curriculum, because essentially what we are doing is preparing the students in our classroom to be good workers in the industry,
Yes.
right? And in the process of that, we are passing down a specific way of thinking to our students that facilitates the industry, not disrupt it. Right. So if you look into the process of curriculum development, you will see that there's a lot of knowledge that we don't put in, because there's a structure of power also that dictates what goes into the curriculum.
And them having that knowledge does not serve the need of that industry that they're going in.
So if you go into the ideological level, right, it's like serving the oligarchs, serving the interest of the oligarchs, the macro structure of capitalism, right? We're not necessarily teaching our students to be able to question why they have to perform what they perform, do what they do, or think differently about these phenomena. We are asking them, here's a system, here's how you should perform. Here are the standards.
Really is a nice segue to my next question, which is another line that you talked about, which I completely agree, but I think it ties back to what you just said, which is society has a way of making you doubt yourself, especially if you take a step outside what is ruled as societal norms. And I think these norms are designed by those that the people who are part of that macro structure, as you talk about, right, to keep us in check. So in other words, are you saying that university or even education as an entirety from kindergarten to graduation to doctorates is there to kill individuality and make us all zombies?
Individuality. Now that's something that I will ask you to go deep into as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
The
please,
concept
let's go.
of individuality, right? That also is a made up construct. The idea of individualism.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And it serves the structure as well for you to think in that way.
Okay.
This is a different conversation.
No, please. I'm curious about this. What do you mean by that? I've never heard this way, mode of thinking.
You see, the collective functions in a different way, right? So one of the co-functions of decolonization is also to bring upon these structures that served communities for centuries before colonization, right? Because colonial capitalism essentially brought the concept of individualism. You think about yourself above anyone else, right? Because you do as per the interests of you, right? Not the collective anymore. And this kind of transcends into individual decisions, and you're cut off from the collective. This is also a subject that I'm currently learning and going into.
Right.
So I can't tell you everything because I'm also in a process of learning.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Like I think Prof. Farid also said how the university kind of is, the curriculum, for example, is cut off from the intellectual traditions of the localities, right? And this is one intellectual tradition, the collective.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I never knew that. Okay, that's it. I learn something every day. Okay. Now, moving forward, again, I just one more passage that I really liked, which I liked, but I disagreed with. So I want to get your ideas.
I like it.
Yeah. So you said, and this was basically right before you went to do a presentation, and you said this: a silent. And this is with regards to how you dress, and you said it's a silent message that was broadcasted to women. One where we were told on how we were required to dress to seem professional. The heels were part of the attire, makeup was too. Now, but isn't this just a product of an individual's insecurities as opposed to it being a gender issue? Because I, personally for me, I've never looked at a woman and gone, oh man, she's not wearing any makeup, or where are those heels? You know, so isn't that just an individual thing being projected upon society?
my
your
individual
individual
perspective.
insecurities. Yeah.
Okay. Can you repeat what you said in the beginning?
No, it's a line that you said, a silent message that was.
Yeah, I got that.
So what I mean by this is,
Insecurity. You bought the
insecurities,
word insecurity.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, how does an insecurity build up? On the basis of what does a insecurity come to be born?
By one own's experience with the outside world, I guess.
Yeah, you're comparing yourself to something.
Okay.
You're comparing yourself to a discourse that tells you a woman's beauty is this, this, this. And insecurity comes in the form that you feel that you don't fit in. That's how an insecurity is born.
But
right?
What my point here is that it seems like from this statement, you're pointing the blame to somebody else, which is, I'm assuming, men.
No.
Society.
No, I'm assuming the meaning in the structure, right? The spaces that we enter. In every space, essentially you're performing, right?
Of course, yeah.
Humans are performative,
yeah.
right? Every space tells you, here's how you can behave in it, here's how you should dress in it, and blah, 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 blah.
But
right?
the choice to listen is ours. At the end of the day, it's all about choice, right? The choice to listen, the choice to practice, it's ours.
Choice.
Did I say a magic word? I see you really like some words, like, so it's tasty.
Well, the word choice is the notes I wrote down.
Okay.
Right? Because you said you wanted to speak about freedom
Yeah.
as a philosophy.
Yeah.
Right?
So then again, the freedom to choose what you believe in is yours. So how can you say it's the fault of the macro structure when you have chosen to absorb these images of what a woman should be? Like for me, for example, let me be very honest.
Yeah.
Today, in the modern day, women with weirdly proportioned body parts are considered attractive.
Weirdly proportioned.
Yeah, like they call it. I don't even want to say it since I'm talking to a lady, but like women who have bubble butts. I can't believe I just said that. I apologize, but those type of women are supposed to be. If what you look at pop culture, the way social media works and all that, those women are supposed to be attractive, but not for me, right? I have my own version of what is attractive based on what I like. And if you look even in the animal kingdom, a male chooses his mate not necessarily by magazines.
I can't believe we went to animal kingdom.
No, but we are animals after all. But what I mean is that I don't choose what society tells me what is attractive. Like, for example, some men like very skinny women. God knows why. But I don't. So it's my choice, right? And that I think comes down to your title. It's our freedom.
You're speaking about the choice when it comes to attraction.
Yes.
Right? Your choice that you are drawn towards certain features and not others. Okay. But what I'm speaking about is what is considered as professional in certain settings. For example, if you go to a hotel and you go to the reception and the lady there is dressed in a skirt and a top and etc., that's the attire that is considered professional in that setting. Now, if that person tomorrow decides that, no, I'm just going to come in a jeans and t-shirt, she would be reprimanded by the system. Right? Because that's not acceptable. So when it comes to social performance, there are known and unconscious expectations of a space that sometimes we have internalized these norms, right? So we think that, it's a presentation. I must dress this way.
Which one could argue the opposite. If I was a man, if I was a man, I am a man, but but gender fluidity. No, but if I were about to give a presentation in the same place that you were about to, I too have to perform by this, to abide by certain standards that have been set. I, as a man, cannot wear jeans and flip-flops and go and present a master's.
Yeah, definitely.
So it isn't
it still is, though. I'll tell you why. Historically, women's bodies have always been policed. Historically. Right? There's a hyper focus on it.
Of course.
Yeah. Right? So it's not that men are somehow kind of, they don't have rules that they have to follow, or the structure doesn't affect them. I don't believe that. I think they're very much exploited from the same structure as well, in different ways. right? So yes, if you come into the presentation and you're not, your attire doesn't fit into the formal attire that is accepted in that space, even you would be reprimanded.
Definitely, yeah.
Definitely. But obviously I can't write as a man, right? I was supposed.
No, but you could be objective by saying that this part I think wasn't really. But anyway, yeah. But I get what you're saying, but I just thought maybe.
No, but I didn't, right? I thought I had to. Again, this was a process of challenging what I thought is the norm, is how I'm supposed to be. It's a process of challenging it. So this incident is one of those incidents where I once again was faced with something that I needed to challenge. Right? So I thought I was supposed to dress this way because that's the norm. And then sometimes you get this kind of ideas from people that if you don't dress that way, somehow your authority is not shown. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, again, just to move on to another one, which I think is very interesting, particularly on a Malaysian context as well, which I also have read in another book by Dr. Farish Noor, which is another fantastic researcher and historian. You made an interesting remark on the concept of race.
Yeah.
Is it a made-up concept?
Yes.
Is it alien to this part of the world?
Alien?
I mean, because from other books I've read, it seems that the concept of race was injected into Southeast Asia and the Asian world.
Yes.
So is it a made-up and is it an alien concept to us? It was an alien concept to us.
It is a social construct, race, and a hierarchy of race. It was important for the colonial project to have a hierarchy of race because the idea was that there is a superior race and an inferior race, and the superior race's idea of civilization has to be passed down to the inferior race, right? Without that construct, it would have been hard for them to press that idea in. Yeah.
Interesting.
So it is a construct.
I mean, although I've always thought after reading that, I was wondering, so why haven't we left that concept, knowing that it is a baggage from our colonial past?
Yes. I mean, that's a lot that we have to strip apart.
Yeah.
Our colonial baggage, right? It's everywhere. It's ingrained into our systems. It's in our legal systems, our educational systems, our discourse. And the way we structure society, everything.
Which you call interesting. You say that what your experience in academia taught you about colonial racism, and you say that it was alive and well. So I was just curious when I read this. I was wondering, what in academia made you think so?
I give you an example, right? Even I think in the book I've given maybe two examples. One is there was always this racial hierarchy of importance. Some scholars were considered important because of their race, right? If you're a European scholar, if you're an American scholar, you're automatically paid higher because of that.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Because, oh my God, you moved from America to Malaysia. You
So
must
far.
be so far. You must be,
You must have rode that boat all that way.
You just moved from Sri Lanka to Malaysia. You're okay.
You're fine.
You're okay.
Yeah.
But there is this racial hierarchy. And having grown up in Sri Lanka, which is a former colony, you've already internalized this hierarchy. And so when you come into new spaces, you can quickly observe it because you've already, internalized it. You can see it. And so that's one example, that there is a specific level of importance that is automatically granted to some scholars just because of their race, and not others because because of their race, right? And then many scholars who come from the global south, we were constantly reminded that, hey, we've given you a job, you're on a contract, so please, you have to do this. Yeah. But obviously the other counterpart will not hear such things.
Yeah. And interesting, you say in the book, you call it black skin, white mask.
Yes.
Trying to undress the whiteness of my brown skin.
Yeah,
I loved it. But I'm just curious, what is the appeal of white privilege and white supremacy that is still today, we still cling on to the baggage of the past? Because I recently had an experience, and I don't think the person liked me very much for saying it, where they were proudly talking about the fact that their child was in Oxford. right? And I said, "Oh, that's interesting," and I didn't react to it. And then so he kept on driving the point because he wanted that reaction that, "Wow, Oxford," and I was like, "Okay, okay, big deal." If you were in Oxford studying astrophysics, wow. But if you're in Oxford doing English, come on, what it's not really a big deal. And
Either way, right? Either way, whether you're in Oxford doing astrophysics or whatever, English,
yeah,
right? Again, they've created this mental hierarchy.
yeah.
And as to why we are still in that mental space, it's the colonial baggage.
It is, yeah, it is.
I think there is an author who wrote a book, Decolonizing the Mind. His name is Ngugi wa Thiong'o. And he speaks of this, the power. You see, colonization was much stronger in the mental arena. Why? Because that lives far longer than physical colonization, right? So right now, we don't necessarily have very apparent structures of power that are European colonizers who are controlling our every move. But yet, we're still paying tribute. Why? Because mentally, we haven't removed our generational trauma.
No, it's very true, and so some of the behaviors we exhibit when it comes to in this case, of course, our colonizers were the British, right? Is, for example, like, why are we part of the Commonwealth? Right, the wealth wasn't common; it was taken by them.
I think Trevor Noah speaks about this, right? Some comedian speaks about about how what Commonwealth?
Yeah,
what wealth is common?
Yeah,
you mean the looted wealth?
Yeah.
I mean, say for what it is, right?
I've seen like sometimes when I see India, for example, sending a squad to Commonwealth Games, I'm thinking, why are you all sending the squad there? Even now, for me personally, to be very honest, like when I watch football, I support English team. Why am I thought they did a lot of bad things to us. It's so weird, but for us today, it's normal. We don't think of it as bad, but actually, we don't consider those facts. Very unique traits of character.
I think it's because we are systemically kind of distant from our histories. If you look into the new generations, they're very much removed from our histories. They have no idea, most don't have any idea of the kind of sufferings that previous generations went through under these regimes. And so again, how to sympathize when you don't know
just on that note, because on this podcast, I do interview several people from the world of academia who've come on many times, and we've had really fantastic conversations. But I think the blame for that has to be your side. Because I think academics do not take, and you can't blame them, because after reading this book, I completely understand why they don't take their role more seriously, because it's not about their impact on society. It's about the numbers at the end of the day, how many publications they can do in a week and stuff, right? Your crop of people don't come out enough on whether it's online media, the mainstream media, to talk about things. And I always believe words have a power, right? And those words never come out of your mouth, because it's that, to be cheesy. I mean, there's that line, with great power comes great responsibility, because you hold so much knowledge. Knowledge is power. You have that power, but you just refuse to speak. And that's what always annoyed me about academics. Like now, things you're sharing, right? I'm sure some people will be affected by it. They're like, we didn't know this, didn't know that, and stuff like that. It affects the world, but y'all don't come out and talk enough, I feel. Sorry, I went on a rant there.
No, please don't say sorry. I fully agree with what you said. And 2 years ago, I tried to create a platform where it was about communicating your research insights in I don't like to say layman, simple language, right? Because what we write is essentially, it just stays within a small circle, because we use a very specific language, which is like a code language, just for people who are within the same field of research would understand, right? But I couldn't get much traction for it from researchers, because again, they're too busy.
Too busy, publishing. My goodness, so many things they're doing.
Publishing.
Writing books and all that. Come on, man.
But yes, you're very right. I will reflect on it.
Yeah, you should. You should. Even like when I had Syed Farid Alatas on, I have another guest, Professor Tajuddin. He comes on a lot, and people like what they say. They really do because it's truth, it's power. It comes out from your words. But okay, so sorry, I tend to do this. This is the second time I'm doing it. The last time I did it to a member of parliament, where I go on this diatribe. I don't know why I do that sometimes.
Why are you saying sorry? It's okay. I like it.
So this book,
Yeah.
I'll be sharing the links in the videos and all the clips that we share. You can also, guys, get the books that I talk about by clicking on the link in my bio on TikTok as well, where I have all the book links, so you can just go there and get it yourself. Now, ultimately, what do you want people to take away from reading your book?
That's a good question. For me, this book was a journey of realizing, right? And I would say I'm still on that journey. The reason why I wrote this book is because because there's a lot of silence in academia about what's happening. And I wanted to put it out there to start a discussion about what's happening. Like you said, essentially, the research that we do and the knowledge that we produce, essentially, it affects everyone, not just us as researchers. And so these are issues that we all have to collectively address as well, because education, I don't know why it's becoming obsolete,
It is.
but it is very important, because growing our mind is very important, not just to serve in the industry, but beyond that, because we can see that our systems are broken and we need to be able to think otherwise. How can we be otherwise, right?
Yeah.
And for that, we need to be able to challenge our mind. So the reason why I wrote this book, and what I would ideally like other people to take from this book, is to question the things that they take for granted in their day-to-day life, because we are so busy.
Yeah. And just on that, just to build on that, there's a story that comes to my mind when you talk about that. It's a story of in Hinduism. There is a god called Yama, I think is his name, and he's the god that comes and takes your soul after you die, right, to Shwarga. And there was a story about him which I think is so applicable now, where he was the most beautiful man there was. All the apsaras and all these people were so enamored by him. Everybody wanted him, and he was so beautiful and so handsome, whatever the word you want to use, that when he caught a reflection of himself in the water, he would just stare at it.
Oh, I know this story. Yeah,
Right?
okay, go ahead.
And then at the end of the day, what happened was he was not doing his job. The whole cycle of life and death could not go on because he was not doing his job in bringing the dead back to Shwarga, right? And then I remember after that, he meets Lord Shiva, and then Lord Shiva tells him to take something from a lake of his. And then when he goes there and sees himself, he's suddenly this ugly, terrifying looking beast. And he gets, why? Then he goes back, Lord Shiva says, what happened to me? Why am I this way? And I think that story is so accurate now, like what you said. I think why there's a huge distance, another reason why distance between academics such as yourself and the general public, is that people as a society have become very me. Whether it's beauty, whether it's self-achievement, and so that it's all about physical.
Yeah.
Like I see, in fact, I just went for an event at a college, and all the girls, most of them are like, they just, read a book, man. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's not even, we like what you said, interesting, because you talk about how that statement that we debated about, where you talked about how the entire macro structure decides how we behave. And I think one of the things they have done very well is focus human development tied up to just physical beauty. That's all it is. Yeah. So, sorry, again, another diatribe that I go on.
No, that's very true. Because one of the notes that I wrote down is that, if I may go into this,
Please.
I feel
Sounds
like
like you
since I
copied
wrote
my
it,
notes.
since I feel like since I wrote it down, I must say
You
it.
better. You better.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wrote down somewhere here is that our freedom is actually a curated experience. It's manufactured. How is it manufactured? Because most of our free choices is about adapting to a system that demands certain things, right? And our choices are very much limited in the meaning that is given in that system, right? So yeah, but a range of choices are manufactured, and it's kind of shaped by our education, marketing, and etc. etc. So this hyper focus on the body aesthetic is the way today.
Yeah, it is the way today. Yeah, it is the way
Right.
today. And that's the perfect way to bring to an end, man. Thank you, Sarah. Wijesinghe. I got it right second time. There we go. I was struggling with that second name last time. I was like, how do you pronounce his name, man? I would try to use
Everyone asks me that.
No,
Yeah.
but congratulations on a fantastic book. I loved it. And if you guys love philosophy, you like analytical thought, you like questioning the world as it is, this book is for you. It's called Illusions of Freedom. Link will be in the description. Please get it. Thank you, Sarah, and all the best to you.
Thank you so
When's
much.
your next book coming out?
I haven't thought about
Okay,
writing one.
because you're busy publishing. Anyway.
No, that's not why. That's not why.
Yeah.
But,
But thank you again.
so much.
Thank you so much. So guys, the links will be there. As always, please like, share, subscribe, share your thoughts. And we have more guests coming up. We'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye.